Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I am your host, Jordan Jones. We have a great episode here today between Purdue's wild come-from-behind victory at Michigan State on Friday, and then the renewal of one of the best rivalries in college basketball coming up on Thursday. Really excited for what we've got here. The week last week turned out much better than it started. The cancellation of the Purdue-Nebraska game was a disappointing start to the week. COVID issues within the Husker program caused that game to be canceled, postponed. Sounds like they're going to try to reschedule the game at some point towards the end of the season. But, nothing Purdue can do there. That's the way of the world here in 2020. So Purdue moves on to Michigan State, the third of what now has become 4 straight away games for Purdue. I believe I saw on Twitter that this is the first time Purdue has played 4 straight away games since the 1940s or something like that. So unprecedented stuff, playing 4 away games in a row. Matt Painter got asked about that and, had a good answer just saying, this year you can't really be too upset about that because that's just how things are going. You're going to have to get some bad breaks in the scheduling department, but, the teams are playing, and that's probably good enough at this point. But 4 straight away games is tough. 4 straight Big Ten away games, none of them easy wins by any means. And we saw the first half of that Michigan State game was the worst half of basketball Purdue has played yet this season. Purdue trails 31-16 at the break. They had more turnovers in the first half than made field goals. That is not a stat you want to be boasting as you go to the locker room at halftime. Purdue just 6 of 23 from the field in the first half, 0 of 12 from deep. And Purdue really struggled with Michigan State's pressure. They were incredibly aggressive off the ball, especially with Purdue's guards. They were picking up Purdue's guards off the ball, 30-plus feet away from the basket, and that got Purdue's guards really uncomfortable. Trevion Williams picked up 2 early fouls, limited to just 9 minutes in the first half. That certainly didn't help. Zach Edey had a couple of buckets there, but, as a whole, it was a really bad half for Purdue. The only positive that came out of the first half was Jaden Ivey. Provided a really nice spark off the bench, 6 points, and all of his baskets were at the rim. And this is something I think is really interesting with Ivey. He's so good at getting to the bucket. His outside game hasn't quite developed yet. He's not shooting very well from 3 on the season. He certainly is not shy about shooting them, and I've been an advocate for him being aggressive all year, and I maintain that's the best thing for Jaden Ivey. But getting to the rim really helps Purdue. He is the most explosive player off the dribble Purdue has, and his aggressiveness really helps Purdue. Nothing was going for them offensively. It's not like, he was taking ill-advised trips down the lane. He was going down there when Purdue had nothing else going. A really good half for Jaden Ivey, who played well all around on Friday. But to start the second half, Purdue just starts chipping away at the lead. Trevion Williams gets going in the second half, starts doing really well early on. A couple threes started to go down for Purdue, not many. Purdue was just 3 of 12 in the second half to make themselves 3 of 24 on the game from 3. Not a good day for the Boilermaker shooters, but a couple of early threes in the half, one from Aaron Wheeler, one from Sasha Stefanovic, really helped Purdue just kind of start whittling away at that deficit. And Michigan State, on the other end of the floor, incredibly sloppy, did not handle the ball all that well. A lot of dead ball turnovers. Interestingly enough, so often you see bad passes or, ill-advised dribbling into traffic. But for Michigan State, a lot of travels, a lot of moving screens, really sloppy on that end. Tom Izzo certainly not happy about that. And then their shot selection wasn't great either. They settled for a lot of twos. They settled for, I guess, a lot of long twos, settled for some threes when they probably could have got the ball worked around a little bit more. So many empty possessions from Michigan State, though, just kept giving Purdue the chance to climb back in the game. And Purdue only shot 39% in the second half. It's not like Purdue was just shooting the lights out, but, under 4 minutes to go, Spartans lead by 5, and, they're up by 4 with a minute to go. Then everything started going Purdue's way. A ball off Rocket Watts on an inbounds pass. Very good play by Eric Hunter on that to get Purdue the ball back. Trevion Williams hits 1 of 2 to make it a 1-point game. A great substitution by Matt Painter. Gets Zach Edey in there to be an offensive rebounder after a Williams missed free throw. He knocks the ball on the floor. Mason Gillis is able to tie it up, and Purdue ends up getting the game winner off of an inbounds play. Trevion Williams hits a nice little floater. Aaron Henry got off a decent look. Great defense by Eric Hunter and Mason Gillis on that shot. The final shot by Aaron Henry to the left of the basket. Just caught the front of the rim. Didn't have enough on it to get it there. Henry's attempt, no good. Purdue wins 55-54. And obviously, Trevion Williams is the story of the game. 26 points, 9 rebounds, 9 for 14 from the floor. And what was even bigger with Williams was his 8 for 12 performance at the free throw line. He came into the game shooting 47% at the foul line. So it's massive for him to be able to go 8 for 12 like that. I know it's certainly not the most impressive free throw number on paper, but given the context of it, that was massive and greatly helped Purdue. Michigan State doesn't have a true center, and that's a really interesting concept for Michigan State, who's had so many good ones over the years. They just had Xavier Tillman. They just had Jaren Jackson Jr. a few years back. They've always had pretty solid big men, but this year, not at all. And, their bigger guys, Marcus Bingham and Matty Sissoko, didn't see the floor late in the second half. Instead, they relied on Joey Hauser, Thomas Kithier, Malik Hall, guys like that who are certainly a more natural fit at the 4 to guard Trevion Williams and Zach Edey while he was in there. But Williams was so impressive in this game. He was patient with the ball. He used his size really well. He got to his spots. He got the shots he wanted, and it was just so effective in that game. And that was the first time that Trevion Williams has really won Purdue a game by himself. Certainly the game at Michigan last year where he had 36 and 20, the best game of his career, but, Purdue loses that game in double OT. This one, very awesome for Trevion Williams that they're able to win this game because he deserved it. He willed Purdue to victory in this one, and, a guy who played high school basketball in Michigan, not from Michigan, but played some high school basketball there. Very good to see him get a nice win, very close to Henry Ford Academy in Detroit and being back in the state where he spent a lot of time growing up. But other than Ivey, who I already mentioned, he was Purdue's most productive guard in this game. It was not a strong evening for Purdue's guards. Eric Hunter Jr. had a fantastic play to force the turnover on Michigan State's inbound pass, but other than that, just 1 of 7 from the field. He did have a couple nice free throws late that were very crucial for Purdue, but he's down to 33% from the field and 29% from 3 on the season. Purdue really needs that to turn around. Certainly you want that field goal number to be up a lot closer to 40, and that 3-point number, you really expect him to be above a 30% 3-point shooter. He had a late turnover in this game that could have been really costly. Just an ill-advised pass along the baseline. Look, Eric Hunter is really important for this team. He's your most veteran guard. He's your best ball-handling guard. And unfortunately, he's just really struggled lately. This is 3 games in a row where he hasn't played all that well. And even that game at Iowa before Christmas, he didn't play all that well there either. A little bit of a disappointing stretch. He's struggled outside of Mackey Arena in Big Ten play. He certainly will look to turn that around against the Hoosiers on Thursday. Had some success against them last year. You'll remember the big dunk right before the half at Mackey Arena that sent the place into a frenzy. But need to get him turned around. Sasha Stefanovic didn't have his best day. 1 of 4 from 3. Had some 2s that, probably weren't the best shots. Had a couple blocked. Not his best day. Michigan State did a nice job of preventing him from getting open on the wing. And unfortunately for Purdue, they're getting very little scoring from the 4 spot. And I don't say that as critically as some do, because Mason Gillis has been incredibly beneficial for Purdue. Plays so hard, plays good on defense, rebounds well. You saw his toughness and tenacity on display when he forces the held ball that kept the possession with Purdue late in the game against Michigan State. But he's been really cold shooting lately. He had that big stretch where he made a lot of shots in a row. I want to say maybe 13 in a row. But he's been pretty cold since then. Aaron Wheeler just shooting 27% from 3 on the season. That's an area of Purdue's team that I think you could say is their biggest weakness right now. Fortunately, they have 2 guys who can play the 4 coming in next year in Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn. But, right now that's an area where Purdue would just love to get a little bit more scoring out of there and at least have one of those guys be shooting decent every night. But, as a whole, Purdue gets a fantastic win at Michigan State. That is not an easy place to win, even without fans. Very few Purdue teams have been able to go up there and win. Purdue was able to do it. However, Purdue will not win a lot of games playing the way it did on Friday. It was good enough to win a game that can have a serious impact on the rest of the season, but Purdue has to shoot better. Purdue has to shore up some turnover problems. They have to handle that pressure better because Michigan State's not the last team that's going to throw that pressure at Purdue. Losing that Nebraska game and not getting to play it really hurt Purdue, in my opinion. Again, I hope the Big Ten's able to reschedule that. By no means am I saying that, that's a guaranteed win for Purdue. However, it's a game I think Purdue would have won, and I think it's a game Purdue really could have used to work on some things and get some confidence going. Thankfully, they should have some confidence now after they get a big-time road win, and that leads us to what's coming up on Thursday. Purdue and Indiana, the rivalry game, 7 p.m. tip-off on FS1. Purdue has won 7 straight games in the rivalry, something that I'm sure most Purdue fans listening to this do not need to be reminded about. They already know. This is the first time a team has won 7 straight in the series since Purdue did it from 1968 to 1972. Indiana hasn't had a stretch like that since they won 13 in a row from 1949 to 55 under their legendary coach, Branch McCracken. But, other than North Carolina Duke, there is no rivalry in college basketball better than Purdue-Indiana. I put North Carolina Duke in there because of the hype and because of how good both teams always are. But Purdue-Indiana is special because in this matchup on Thursday, there are 13 scholarship players who will be on the court from the state of Indiana, split between the 2 teams. You've got 7 scholarship native Hoosiers at Indiana. You've got 6 Indiana natives on scholarship at Purdue. It's a bummer to not have fans this year. It's a special matchup. It's the two best basketball programs in the best basketball state in America, to quote Robbie Hummel from an intro video to the game a couple years ago at Mackey. Archie Miller is seeking his first win over Purdue. He has lost his first 5 games versus Painter and his Boilermakers. Look, it's a sore subject for IU fans. It is a major reason that there is strong criticism of Archie Miller throughout the IU community a little bit. I know, Archie's in year 4, but by this point, they certainly expected to have beaten Purdue once by now. Last year, Purdue goes into Assembly Hall, spoiled the long-awaited return of Bob Knight. After 20 years, he returns to Assembly Hall, and Purdue goes in there with a 74-62 victory, and then wins very ugly in a 57-49 game in late February at Mackey Arena. The Hoosiers are off to an up-and-down start, fairly similar to Purdue. The teams have identical 8-5 records. Both teams are 3-3 in the Big Ten as well. But Hoosiers are coming off a road win at Nebraska on Sunday night. The Hoosiers had a big first-half lead behind some hot shooting. Rob Finney had himself a nice night. Nebraska comes back, really battles, and makes it a game, even took the lead in the second half. But Indiana hangs on to win late, and a good win for the Hoosiers. They really did not want to let that game slip away. It was interesting to see how Nebraska played them. Very aggressive and physical with Trace Jackson Davis, the sophomore forward from Center Grove High School. He's the star player of the Hoosiers. He's going to be an All-Big Ten selection this year. There's no doubt about that. 20 points and 9 boards a game. And he's an interesting dynamic of a player because he's not a shooter at all. 6'9", very athletic. He is very good at finessing his way towards the basket. Handles the ball fairly well for a big guy. Has some really good moves. But, he doesn't shoot threes, and he doesn't shoot a mid-range jumper all that well either. Fairly limited, but he is so good around the basket that it makes up for a lot of those shortcomings in his game. Purdue did very well managing Jackson Davis in the 2 matchups last season. He's certainly a better player right now than he was last year, but, Purdue is going to be searching for answers for him because, he's one of the best players in the conference, and he can make a difference and go on runs in a game that really energize that team. Outside of Jackson Davis, the Hoosiers aren't a particularly good shooting team. Armon Franklin, the sophomore guard from Indianapolis Cathedral, is the best shooter. He has taken a massive jump from his freshman to sophomore season, shooting 47% from 3 so far, but he did injure his ankle in their win over Maryland last Monday, has not played in IU's last 2 games against Wisconsin and Nebraska. His status will be very important coming into the matchup on Thursday. Clearly, IU would love to have him back. He's their best shooter. He's been their best all-around guard this year. They'd love him to be in the lineup and be able to throw him at Purdue to help, maybe free up some more opportunities for Jackson Davis down low. Jerome Hunter, a sophomore forward, has been shooting better of late, now up to 36% on the year. But besides those two, it's not a great group of shooters down there. Rob Finney, Aljamain Durham, Anthony Leal, all are kind of streaky. They have their good days, they have their bad days, but, not consistent game in, game out snipers. You've got some other guys on the team as well, Trey Galloway, Christian Lander, Race Thompson, but none of those guys are big-time shooters for them. However, they are a very good defensive team. IU is 15th in defensive efficiency according to KenPom. They play a pack line style defense. They're not very deep down low, which makes the pack line a little more interesting. They don't have necessarily a rim protector, which the pack line kind of helps out with. But, Joey Brunk is IU's other true 5, but he's been injured all year, back problems. I believe I saw where he had surgery recently. He may not play this year, but when Jackson Davis isn't on the floor, they go very small. Race Thompson, a junior forward, gets some minutes there at the 5. He's been a very productive player for IU this year. He helps out a lot, but Purdue would love to get some one-on-one opportunities down in the paint. Trevion Williams will look to build off his impressive game. I expect IU to put a lot of pressure on him. I wouldn't be surprised with double teams. They're certainly going to help off, have guys come down from the perimeter to make him uncomfortable. It will certainly be a chance for Trevion Williams to showcase his passing ability. But outside of Williams, he can't win Purdue every game. Purdue needs to shoot much better than they did in their last 3 road games. Purdue has to limit turnovers and really force Indiana to play a half-court offense. That is not the strength of this IU group. They certainly prefer to run in transition with Trace Jackson Davis as a trailer. But if you can settle IU down, force him to play the half-court, and really just limit Jackson Davis's output, then I think you've got a good shot at winning this game. If you have a feeling in this one that IU's kind of due for a win, you're certainly not alone. 7 in a row doesn't happen all that often in a rivalry series like this. IU's going to be favored at Assembly Hall, but it's definitely a winnable game for Purdue. No fans, some confidence now that they got a big road win. We'll see what happens when they go down there. And then Sunday, Purdue takes on Penn State at Mackey Arena. Their first homecoming after the 4-game road stretch comes to an end. Penn State has been on pause for COVID issues lately. About more than a week now. I think their first game was 2 weekends ago that got canceled. Purdue absolutely needs to get this game in. It's a winnable opportunity for Purdue. Granted, Penn State is capable of scoring in bunches. We've seen them put up a lot of points in some games this year. But Purdue has an opportunity to pick up 2 wins, and that's huge. Right now, most bracket experts have Purdue as a bubble team, and they got to defend their home court against Penn State. If you look at these 2 matchups, I know what IU means. It means more to IU at this point than it does to Purdue. In terms of the game itself, that fan base is very passionate. They don't like waiting for results. They certainly don't put up with losing to Purdue. They have a belief that they're above losing to Purdue, despite what the all-time series record may indicate. But an 8th straight loss to Purdue would be devastating. The heat would really start to turn up on Archie Miller. But for Purdue, it's a week where you could go 2-0. I think you are just as likely to go 2-0 as you are to go 0-2. But you have to defend your home court. You can't afford a home loss to a team that, you are rated better than by KenPom. You are going to be favored in. You need to defend your home court there. And if you can steal one down in Bloomington and make it 8 in a row, then, you're on cloud 9, because Purdue fans love that rivalry. It means a ton. And, it's such a big game to everyone in this state. A few thoughts on football here before we close out. It was just announced a little bit before I started recording this episode. Tyreek Murphy, the freshman running back, is headed to the transfer portal. I can't say I'm all that surprised here. Murphy opted out of the season towards the end. I want to say before the Nebraska game. He dealt with some discipline issues within the team after a marijuana citation the night before the Iowa game. He was a highly touted recruit, rated a 4-star by some services, but he never saw the field for Purdue. I do expect him to transfer a little bit closer to home. He's a New York native, so Rutgers would be on the table there. We've seen Ahmad Anderson, a New York kid, go to Temple. I think it's going to be an East Coast destination for him. And then there have been some more coaching staff changes. The popular Twitter guy, the director of player personnel, Aaron Hodges, is not returning. That is a role where you are very heavily involved in recruiting, but Hodges will not be returning. There was quite a bit of buzz about that, I think because of his popularity on Twitter and his interactive nature. And then the defensive line coach, Terrence Jamison, is leaving Purdue to be a part of Brett Bielema's staff at Illinois. We're to that point now where fans aren't necessarily they're not pleased with where Purdue football is right now. A couple of losing seasons in a row has people bummed out. This stuff's normal. You lose coaches all the time. There's a lot of turnover in assistant coaching, but it is noteworthy. It's worth discussing a little bit. There has been no hire on the defensive coordinator spot yet. Western Kentucky's Clayton White was rumored to be interested. Purdue was rumored to have interest there. He took the South Carolina defensive coordinator spot. It was reported that he had an offer from Purdue. I have no idea the validity of that statement, but another guy who I had brought up, Marcus Freeman from Cincinnati, the defensive coordinator of the Red Hot Bearcats this year, signed on as Notre Dame's defensive coordinator, replacing Clark Lee, who's the new head coach at Vanderbilt. Really good hire for Notre Dame there. The former Hazel staffer, Freeman, was obviously a dream candidate for Purdue, but I don't know that that was really an option. I think he was destined for a bigger job than Purdue, but we'll see where Purdue ends up going. I don't think it's going to be too much longer. We're starting to see a lot of dominoes fall with some coordinator hires across the country. I don't think Purdue's going to be too much behind at this point. Ohio State, Alabama in the national championship game. As I said last week, it just proves that the Big Ten probably did the right thing for itself and for its money, especially in a year where money is so important, by ensuring Ohio State got in the playoff. Should be a good game. Again, it's good for the Big Ten that Ohio State's there. Should be a high-flying game, couple of good offenses. Really excited to watch that one, but football's kind of slow right now. I'll keep updating coaching changes and transfer portal info. Purdue did pick up a pair of transfers this week, a couple of defensive players, a linebacker from Auburn, and a defensive end from South Carolina. I'll have more on those guys later. Once the portal kind of wraps up, I'd like to do a recap episode of the portal to look at what Purdue gained and lost. By no means are we done with the transfer portal madness. It's going to be a busy offseason. The NCAA's one-time transfer rule did not end up getting voted on in January, but at some point that's going to be passed. We're going to see not necessarily free agency, but a lot of freedom. Guys are going to be moving around like crazy. That'll be interesting to see. And we're just going to see more and more of this. So once the portal really cools down here in the next few months, I'll do a recap episode. But until then, I'm not going to spend too much time breaking down the new guys that Purdue has added. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for spending your time with me. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond for news and in-game analysis. Boilers and Beyond is available wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I will be back next Monday with a new episode to talk about Purdue's games against Indiana and Penn State. But until then, let's see if Purdue can make it 8 against the Hoosiers.